Robert Gibson was the heart of one of wrestling's most iconic teams, the quiet, reliable partner who loved to flash moves. But what happens when the music stops and the arenas empty out? Robert is almost 68, and his life has been a wild ride of fame, hard knocks, and quiet battles you never saw. This is his story and where he is now. To understand Robert's life, we need to go back to the 1980s when wrestling was changing fast. The old territory system was fading. Wrestling was coming on TV all across the country, and wrestlers were turning into big stars. It was loud, colorful, and exciting. And right in the middle of it all came the Rock and Roll Express. Now, the Rock and Roll Express wasn't just another tag team. Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson looked and acted like rock stars. They had long hair, bandanas, flashy clothes, and wrestled in a fast style people weren't used to back then. Ricky often got more attention because he was usually the one getting beaten up before making the big comeback. But Robert was just as important. He was the calm and steady partner who held the team together. There was something extremely charming about him. But Robert's life wasn't always easy. He was born Reuben Kane on July 19, 1958. Fans saw him as strong and reliable. But outside the ring, life was harder. Like many wrestlers of that time, he faced struggles and temptations. His career wasn't just about fame, it was about surviving and finding ways to keep moving forward, no matter what. Now, back in the 80s and 90s, wrestling looked like nothing but fun from the outside. Big crowds, wild characters, non-stop action. But for the wrestlers themselves, it was tough. The travel never stopped. They were driving all night, catching a few hours of sleep in cheap hotels, then getting up and doing it all again the next day. On top of that, they were always hurt. Every match left bruises or worse, and there was never enough time to heal. So what did a lot of guys do? They turned to drugs, painkillers to fight through injuries, stimulants to stay awake on long road trips, other things just to get a break from the stress. For most of them, it wasn't about partying, it was about survival. But that survival plan came with a heavy cost. Once you started relying on pills or powders just to make it through the day, it was almost impossible to stop. Robert was right in the middle of all that. He wasn't the only one. Almost everyone from his generation went through it. Gibson never told long, detailed stories about his own struggles, but people in the business knew. It was just part of the life wrestlers were living back then. The truth is, there wasn't much help. No support system, no one stepping in to say, slow down. The rule was simple. Don't show weakness. If you're hurt, tape it up. If you're exhausted, take something and keep moving. If you admit you're struggling, you might lose your spot. That mindset drove a lot of people deeper into addiction. The fact that he kept it private doesn't make it any less real. A lot of wrestlers stayed silent about their problems back then. The business didn't make it safe, to be honest. So the battles played out in private until they started showing up in broken health, broken families, or careers cut short. For Gibson, like so many others, the toughest fights weren't in the ring. They were on the road, in hotel rooms, and inside himself. Years later, in 2007, Gibson found himself in a different role. He was working as an assistant trainer in Ohio Valley Wrestling, WWE's developmental territory. It should have been a good fit, passing his knowledge down to the next generation. But things fell apart after a backstage argument that spun out of control. CM Punk was around at the time. He was already ECW champion, but also came to OVW to help with talent. Punk always wore the straight-edge X's on his taped wrist to show what he stood for. Gibson didn't like it. He told Tony Atlas, another veteran working there, to straighten out the young guys, and especially the one with the tape. Atlas went up to Punk, thinking he was just a trainee, and told him the tape made him look like his arms were broken. Punk refused to take it off. Later that night, during a meeting, Atlas called him out in front of everyone and even called him an asshole. Punk fired back, saying Atlas didn't understand the current product, that his advice was out of touch, and that he couldn't even remember people's names. The argument went on for nearly 20 minutes. Atlas eventually admitted he'd been wrong, and that Gibson had pushed him into it. He even apologized to Punk. But it was too late. Gibson got blamed for starting the whole thing, and he was fired from his job in OVW. That fight was never really about wrist tape. It was about two different worlds colliding. Old school veterans like Gibson and Atlas believed in one way of doing things. Punk represented a new style in a new era. When those two approaches clashed, it ended badly for Gibson. Sadly, this wasn't the end of controversies for Robert. When Gibson and Morton teamed up, it was magic. Fans connected with them right away. They were fast, exciting, and always fighting from underneath. People loved to cheer for them. Together, they built one of the greatest tag team legacies in wrestling. But behind the scenes, their partnership was just as real as it looked. And like family, it wasn't always smooth. Morton has said their relationship was like a marriage. They were together all the time, wrestling, traveling, sharing cars and hotel rooms, and just like a married couple, they fought. Sometimes over little things, sometimes over bigger things. He laughed about how they'd fight like cats and dogs. But there was one line they never crossed. They never hit each other, never threatened each other. The respect was too strong. That respect ran deep. At the WWE Hall of Fame, Morton looked at Gibson and said, "I love him just like he's my own brother. I've been with him more than my own brothers." That wasn't just a nice line for the cameras. It was true. They had been through everything together. The highs of sold-out arenas, the lows of being underpaid and overworked. Through it all, they stayed side by side. But money caused real problems. Wrestling in the 80s wasn't easy on a wrestler's wallet. Pay was often unclear, and promoters weren't always honest. In 1988, Gibson had enough. He got into a pay dispute with Jim Crockett Promotions and walked out. Some stories even say he was so mad he broke something in the promoter's office. Whether that part's true or not, it shows how tense things were. For wrestlers, money wasn't just about comfort, it was survival. Their story got even messier on screen. In 1990, Gibson badly injured his knee during a match with Doom. Butch Reed came down on his leg and tore his ACL. While Gibson was out recovering, WCW made a shocking move. They turned Ricky Morton against him. In 1991, Morton joined the York Foundation. He even started going by Richard Morton. Suddenly, the Rock and Roll Express were on opposite sides. At the Great American Bash, Morton pinned Gibson in the ring. It was just part of the storyline, but fans felt the betrayal. Wrestling has a way of mixing truth with drama, and this feud hit close to home. There's also a story Morton once shared that shows how tough life really was for them. He said Gibson's knee wasn't even injured in the ring at first. The day before, Gibson's wife accidentally hit him with a car. His leg was already in bad shape. Still, he went out for the match. Morton told him, "Just get to the ring and go down right away. That way, you'll at least get paid." It might sound harsh, but that's how it was. No match meant no money. Gibson later had surgery with Dr. James Andrews and was out for months, but the fact that he even tried says everything about the pressure wrestlers lived under. As he gets close to 68, he's still out there doing what he loves. He runs a wrestling school, takes people on fishing trips, and sometimes even gets back in the ring with Ricky Morton. He's not stuck living in the past. He's found ways to keep wrestling in his life while also building a life outside of it. That alone shows how tough and adaptable he is. Like a lot of wrestlers from his time, Gibson went through some hard struggles. Life on the road was rough. The travel, the injuries, and the pressure pushed many wrestlers toward drugs and other escapes. Gibson's private battles aren't fully known, but it's clear he faced the same challenges as many of his peers. His story is tied to that larger truth about how costly the wrestling life could be. He also had moments where things went wrong. In 2007, while working in WWE's developmental system, he ended up caught in a clash with CM Punk that led to his firing. It was one of those backstage blow-ups that showed how wrestling is about more than just what happens in the ring. Sometimes the old school way of thinking didn't match the new. Even for a veteran, one bad moment could change everything. And then, of course, there's Ricky Morton. The Rock and Roll Express was built on their connection. They fought, they argued, but they always came back together. Ricky has said many times that Robert is like a brother to him. That brotherhood carried them through the good and the bad. In the end, Gibson's career is about more than titles or fame. It's about lasting through the hard times, holding on to loyalty, and finding a way forward. His journey shows the heart it takes to survive in wrestling and the bond that made the Rock and Roll Express unforgettable.